Now we go back to our military analyst in the studio, General Safwat Al-Zayat, who is our military analyst. Welcome again. We have heard that the U.S. is going to send to the Gulf the mechanized 4th Division, which is equipped with high-tech equipment. How can we look at this? How can we take it to mean? Does it mean that the U.S. has achieved an important advance and is adding troops and more troops? Or is the United States is amending its war plans? Of course, the 4th Division is on ships and was in the Eastern Mediterranean and was preparing to enter the ports of Mersin and Iskenderun in Turkey to move to northern Iraq, specifically to southern Turkey, in order to... However, because of the Turkish parliament decision and their reluctance and the Turkish political system in general, an end was put to the plan and the front was cancelled about 10 days prior to the start of operation. This led to the changing of American strategy quickly. This deprived the American president from quickly maneuvering and rescheduling the massing of the troops in northern Iraq. The Americans realized that without the North Front, they will have to think and act fast because the troops they had in the south were, the size of them was not going to be enough. Thus, they quickly sent the more troops, and quickly they sent the 4th Division from the Mediterranean across the Suez Canal to the Gulf. The resistance which faced the coalition forces, especially in Al-Nasiriyah, was Zubair, Al-Basra, Al-Qasr, and Faur, took its toll on the force of the thrust of the American forces towards Baghdad, and they wanted to move fast to reach and face the Iraqi troops that are defending Baghdad. Since the day before yesterday, the troops were some 60 miles of the capital to give momentum to the ground troops. No doubt there was a strategic setback because of the troops work or move or fight for 4 to 5 days. Then they need to be resupplied, they need to be reinforced. The Americans are trying fast to make up for the lost time and to change the strategy. Excuse me, General, it has been said that President Bush was hasty in starting the war when he launched this war. What I'm trying to say is how much has the element of surprise was affected because of that decision. For example, during the American war against terrorism or against Afghanistan, Bush said that perhaps it will go on for months or perhaps years. When the war on Iraq started, it was decided that it would be short, no longer perhaps than 1 week. We find President Bush saying today that he does not know how long the war might go on. Can this setback lead to the lengthening of the war? As a matter of fact, it was a serious strategic mistake by the Americans in general. They anticipated the collapse of the Iraqi fronts will take place on the outset of the breakout of hostilities, and thought, just as it happened in the first Gulf War, that this will happen again, and they drew their war plans accordingly. And they were expecting that there would be a collapse of the Iraqi troops and surrenders, massive surrenders on a large scale by their troops. They thought that the Iraqi people would rise with the arrival of the American troops. Therefore, they launched their first attack around 5 or 5:35 in the morning on March 20th. and we saw the push across the Kuwaiti border. This was seen as something strange by former American field commanders, and General Norman Schwarzkopf, for example, asked why were there no intensified aerial strikes initially, and why it did not continue for at least 1 week, and said that during the first Gulf War, I insisted that the aerial bombardment lasted 38 days, and then after the ability of the Iraqis was weakened and their defenses were softened. Then Schwarzkopf said that he asked the president to approve the land push. But in this case, the missile launches, only 20 or 40 missiles were launched on the morning of the 20th, and two 117 stealth plane, or each dropping some 2,000-pound bombs. There were certainly American miscalculations as to the abilities of the Iraqi defenses. Maybe such miscalculations affected the American strategy. In the end, we found it was faulty by not accurately assessing the ability of the Iraqi troops in the fronts. In addition, let me tell you that in addition, they expected the people of Iraq to rise, and that did not happen either. They pushed fast in the depth of Iraq, attacking the supply lines, which extended their supply lines extended some 350 kilometers around the cities of Karbala. Now we have the Iraqis are launching a counterattack, and also there are questions about the wisdom and the tactics of the Iraqis. Their tanks were supposed to come out quickly, taking advantage of the bad weather, but again, in order to neutralize the American aerial forces, but again the Americans do not, of course, you understand that despite all these factors, the Americans do have some high-tech equipment. Remember when the start of the hostilities, how we saw the American president going from the White House and said that the operations have started, let us pray for our soldiers, etc. An hour or 2 or 3 later, the Americans said that there was a shelling which targeted Saddam Hussein. 2 to 3 hours later, the Iraqi president appears on the air to say that he is still here, he is still alive. In other words, there are many questions. Perhaps an explanation is that there is over-dependence on technology, and perhaps because the civilians and the controlling Pentagon, such as the civilians who are controlling the Pentagon, such as Donald Rumsfeld and Paul Wolfowitz, who say our technology is enough, which led to the controversy between them and the American generals. Thank you very much, General.